brings me back to my broadcast major days and why I was interested in broadcasting.
Finally using your degree after 40 years.
Exactly. 31 years in legal practice, and here I am now back to broadcasting.
Yeah.
But about law, which is really kind of cool because I'm using both degrees actually simultaneously. And with the Consult app, it's been really cool. You and I have been,
talking about peeling back layers on an onion, huh?
Right? Yeah. I mean, we've just been crushing it with researching and drafting and script writing and all kinds of things. It's just multitasking.
It's been good though.
It's been
as much as I thought that I knew. It's like the old adage, right? You think you know everything and that's all you know, and then like in the last week, it's been like, man.
Well, in doing the scripts for Consult, for the individual features to do the voiceovers, they call them, which is when the tech guys who are amazing, those guys blow me away.
Always.
It's like you hand them something, and an hour later you're looking at the website or the app, and it's like, how did you make it do that?
Right. Yeah. Right.
Then you look at their coding on their computer screen, and you're like, what in God's name is that?
Yeah.
I mean, how do you know what to do?
Yeah, I don't even pretend to want to understand any of that. I just look at it and go, oh, that's great.
Yeah, it's like that. What they had? There's a show on one of the cable TVs. How's That Made? I think it's called, or something.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Love that show.
Yeah, yeah. I'm fascinated by manufacturing and stuff like that.
Manufacturing is incredible.
I watch that stuff, man. I geek out, and I'm like, man, that's super cool.
It is just. I mean, even the process of how they create parts, like just a ball bearing,
dude. Watch parts.
Watch parts.
With the technology of a watch, how far back it's gone, right? When you see like I remember I was watching, it may have been Antiques Roadshow or
another good show.
One of the what's the one where they go in everybody's garages?
Pickers?
Yeah, American Pickers, right? And or it was either that or the Vegas one, Pawn Stars.
Pawn Star, I love
where they
Pawn
had
Stars,
a watch fixing kit, right, or a watchmaker set.
Yes,
it was either on one of the three of those, and I remember like, man, look at all that stuff. And then what's crazy is they've been doing that for years.
I was just going to say, because prior to manufacturing, they did that by hand.
Well, yeah,
all those little tiny. I mean.
Yeah.
If you've ever looked into a watch, which I just did this week, and I cannot get the back, the rear.
As I unsuccessfully looked into a watch.
What is it? The back plate on the watch to replace the watch battery, and now I got it rubber banded together because I can't even spin it back on. I'm like, and then I'm using my my microscope or my lens, and I'm looking at the parts inside, and these little micro.
And you're like, I'm going to mess with those?
Yeah,
I don't think so.
Who the hell put the threads on a micro screw?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I got nothing. I will say this: my fan blade came off last night on my oscillating fan.
Oh,
it's so old. I heard a. I'm like, oh man, please don't be dead. Don't be dead.
It's like a helicopter. Right?
Yeah, that's what happened. And I'm like, no. I popped the outside of it off, and it had just become, and I'm like looking at it. I'm trying to screw it on. I go, wait a minute. I think you got to screw in the reverse direction for this. I think because
yes.
So I was like, I got to be careful that this thing isn't stripped, right? Or I don't strip it and ruin the because it's obvious high grade plastic. And I remembered, and I got it back on. And I was like, whew. So like 11 o'clock last night, I'm thinking, man, if I don't have a fan, I'm not going to sleep.
I can't sleep without a fan anymore.
Me neither.
I've had one for so long. Well, we're in Florida.
Yeah.
Even with the air conditioning, I don't know if it's the slight
word. It's menopause. Menopause.
Yeah, menopause.
Yeah.
Because even in college, though, I just
gotta have a breeze. Gotta have a leg out, and I gotta have a breeze.
I moved into a place one time, and they didn't have ceiling fans, and it didn't really strike me until like a week of like not being able to fall asleep.
Yeah.
Why is it? And then I'm realizing there's no fan.
Right.
So I bought one of the stand fans, and you just blow it right on the bed.
Oh yeah. Well, sleep is imperative.
Sleep is a good thing.
You understand that?
Oh yes.
Lately, it's
yes.
It's paramount.
It is paramount. Haven't had much in the past month.
Yeah.
Apartment issues, but we won't discuss that tonight.
Yeah. Moving right along.
Here to talk about COVID.
That might be another law-related case that we'll talk about in the future.
An entire show the way it's turning out.
Maybe a season.
Yeah. Yeah, right. I'm there every day meeting some kind of worker.
Yeah, there you go. So listen, I've been doing some research. We always try to find some current events that have to do with law. The COVID narrative is becoming a little bit exhausting.
Worn, yes.
But rather than talk about like the statistics on the COVID and what everybody's doing, we can start talking about some of the ripples in the legal industry of what we're starting to see, in terms
the profession has gotten hammered.
Well, it's getting hammered, but in addition to that, some workplace issues.
Where
a
lot of workplace issues.
There's a supply and demand, right?
Yes.
Where, the courthouses are trying to handle as much as they can, via a video conference or whatever,
Correct.
however they're handling it. And it's kind of hard to think of law as an industry, isn't it?
It is, but it's a huge one.
Well, but you're learning it is an industry.
Yes.
Right? I mean...
Oh, yes. It's definitely a business.
When we talk about municipalities and how they make money and how they keep the lights on and how we pay our police force if we're not going to defund them, it's crazy. And now we're starting to see that. Well, I guess a courthouse is a workplace.
Yes, and one of the interesting things to me about it, and I think we'll probably address it in some of the issues tonight, is how the entire the COVID issue, and we just talked about people getting tired of talking about it, but the fact of the matter is it's here, it's real, and
it's not going anywhere.
Correct, and we have to deal with it.
Yeah,
which is uniquely. It's a unique situation for us at Consult because this idea for this application cross-platform system was conceived way before COVID. It was not COVID was not around, but with the development of COVID, the use and the usefulness of the app and its features, in particular the communications features, in conjunction with the case management features, are amazing. And I think that we've been, in my opinion, working at light speed. It's only been a few months. What we've accomplished in a few months is just mind-blowing.
Yeah, for sure. And going over, like we were speaking about, writing the scripts for the tutorials, it's been crazy to think that these were storyboards 9 months ago.
Right.
Actually 7 months ago.
7 months ago. Yeah.
7 months ago, there were still storyboards. Actually 6 months ago, there were still storyboards.
Right. And now we have a working app, and every day it's being tweaked and polished and
changed and manipulated and
new features. And then the features can do more things and more things. And like I said, the tech guys, they blow my mind.
Yeah.
I go in there, I see them working, and it's like I'll just write down an idea like, well, what do you think, it turns like in addition to this, and here's what it can do. And hey, you might want to do, can you do something like this or that? And next thing you know, like.
Give us an hour.
Yeah.
Come on. I'll see after
come
lunch.
Out before lunch, and it's like, oh yeah, when I get back
Check
from
this
lunch,
out.
we'll put it up on a board, and it's like, huh?
It really is like technical artistry.
It's exactly what it is.
It's taking an idea, right, and then fabricating it via numbers and code sequences to make something that's tangible and functional.
That's the incredible part. It's electrons. It's basically electricity that they somehow turn into a tangible, usable object.
Right. Yeah. That has the multiple functions.
It's incredible.
Yeah, it really is, and it's bizarre to me to watch. Right? I'm in awe. Right. And it's really, really neat. I guess, in learning to speak app.
Yes.
In the last 6 months, it's been a lot less time, but I can remember sitting in on some meetings and just going, I don't even know how to I saw the storyboards and I knew how to do this, but then learning how to think that way, it's been to where I have a completely different perspective about an app now, right?
We could almost we're getting to the point where I was actually thinking about it. I think we had discussed it. It was possibly, which I think is probably going to become a likelihood, if not a definitive project for us, is doing it. It's almost like an app vocabulary list or library, like a
well, for us, like a user library, like, if you will, or user dictionary.
Sure, everybody has cell phones or some kind of computer system for the most part, and you look at you use certain applications or functions, and then you start learning that literally everything on your screen has a specific name.
Yeah.
Every field,
you learn the minutia of the phone, right?
Exactly.
And then there's that's just like one layer, and then there's subsets of that, right? And it's really crazy to think that. And like the Consult app, and getting into touching on the COVID situation is, I think initially a lot of folks, I know. Okay, I can only speak from my own perspective, and I can say that when it was labeled a pandemic, right? You think to yourselves, okay, how long is this going to last? Or what are we looking at? You try to prepare yourself, and certainly.
I remember at the beginning, back in March,
it seemed like it was surreal.
30 to 60 days.
Yeah, it seemed like surreal. And you're like, okay, 30 to 60 days will lay low. It's not going to thrive in the heat. Wrong. It's not going to be around. It may come back in the fall. Wrong. And so we were tasked with coping with this scenario. And I know from my own perspective, I thought, oh man, and tying this into the industry of law, I think everybody put a Band-Aid on whatever they were doing and say, okay, well, how do we make do, right?
Exactly.
So that's happened. Well, here we are, March, April, May, June. We're into July. So here we were more April-ish, right, when we kind of hit that. So we're four solid months into this now. Clearly no end in sight, nowhere near. As a matter of fact, numbers are, from what they report, surging. And it's not going anywhere. Courts are delaying. Everybody's delaying. We're talking about, we're going to talk about a workplace issue here at a courthouse. So now it's like, well, what's the long-term plan? Because clearly this isn't going to be a short-term situation. Right. It's going to be longer. Some people say the mask thing is going to go into January. And this pertaining to law, it's going to be crazy. And the Consult app plays right into that.
Yes.
Because of having that encrypted environment that you can communicate in, that you could send documents in, that you could have a secure conversation or secure consultation, not compromising the quality of your work, the efficiency of your work, actually maximizing the efficiency of your work,
exactly.
Right? But not risking anybody's health, right? Does it get any better than that?
Talking about how our product, the Consult app, fits into basically a solution to the existing problem, and we're kind of led into it with when this was just a concept.
Yeah,
it had nothing to do with COVID,
right? But
COVID's here, and just to throw in a quote or a paraphrase, if you will, from Judy Perry Martinez, who is the present or incumbent president of the American Bar Association, and in a couple of interviews that I've seen her in, she was addressing how the Bar Association is trying to assist lawyers in being properly equipped, quote, that is quote, for the current circumstances. The two primary paramount issues are the inability to communicate or have meetings with clients, and secondly, the limited or non-existent in some jurisdictions ability to actually meet with clients and share and review documents, and their massive problems. And while the courts are shut down, so are the law offices. You drive around and go to law offices, right. There's either one person there who may be manning the phones, who may
right.
be there just in case somebody has to come in, but most everybody's working remotely, either from home or their car or wherever they may be.
Well, we know this for a fact.
Yes.
That they say that they're open, right? And technically they are, because clearly they're still doing business.
Yes.
However, it's a skeleton crew, and certainly they're discouraging that face-to-face consultation unless absolutely necessary. Outside of like abuse cases or criminal cases or stuff like that. So it's been really bizarre, and this is a narrative that isn't going anywhere, and it's been crazy because I actually spoke with an attorney friend of mine this week, and she stated that she had a consultation in her car for 4 hours and was just putting out fires, and she actually dropped her son off, right, to a caregiver, and was pulling down the road and had to pull over because a certain case went sideways, and she spent 4 hours in her car putting out fires and never left. She said when she looked down, it was like noon when she was done with said situation. And it's like, man, it's happening everywhere. And she said, what we've been implementing in my practice was a fix. It was a Band-Aid. We now have to consider what we're going to do long term with this, because clearly this isn't going anywhere. So now what are we going to use? What are we going to do? And guess what she's using?
She's using Consult.
That's right.
And on that note, the research, because we do a lot of it, also shows that this has become, as I guess the catchphrase now is, the new normal.
Yeah.
Where they're not anticipating across the board, internationally as well. We're writing an article for an international legal association about our product. They saw it and they said, wow, we need to know about this.
Right.
And again, they're not, the way people are becoming now, as time goes on and the longer it draws on, they're becoming more and more accustomed to working remotely. And so it's literally changing the way that law firms operate.
Well, I think Europe in particular, they were doing remote and working remotely probably a little bit more than we have been.
Yes.
And I know that we've done extensive research about practices that have been toying with the remote business model instead of the traditional brick and mortar, both across all verticals, not just it pertains to law. There is the adage, though, that you have that micromanagement or that ability to want to micromanage your employees. However, I have read some recent articles that have said that, these companies or corporations have been forced to kind of make some decisions on the fly. Obviously, they weren't allowed to be out, so they had to spend that money on the technology to, in some cases, companies bought laptops for their employees and, certain software to have them work remotely, hence some video conferencing tools, multiple different types. And they were forced to spend that where they normally wouldn't have done it and they wouldn't have considered it.
Exactly.
And they're finding that there's been an uptick in productivity. And I wonder if the pandemic, are you so bored that you can't, you got nothing else to do?
Right.
So are you throwing yourself into your work to kind of not think about the pandemic? Is that part of the productivity? Right?
Sure. Well, there's also the stress involved with not being able to accomplish what you want to accomplish in a work day or a work week or even now work months.
Sure.
Going back to the example you just gave, when you're an attorney, obviously I've been in that position, sitting in my car on my cell phone, and your clients are calling in. They want, they need to get a hold of you. It's not like they're harassing you, but you've got to work your case. And from the attorney's perspective, you have to get information. Without information, you're at a complete disadvantage in any legal matter.
And not just the story.
Correct.
When information does not mean your side of the story, right?
Exactly.
There's multiple sides of the stories, right?
Documents and medical records and witness lists and interviews, and when you're doing
arrest reports.
Yeah, exactly. And this will eventually links into what I consider and I call the genius of Consult, is that when you're in your car,
Dave Charles,
you've got you've basically
shameless plug.
You've basically got your cell phone and whatever is accessible from your cell phone, which is usually close to nothing. And clients are calling because obviously they're stressed. They don't know what to do. They need information or information or input back from the attorney. And when you're in your car and you're parked on the side of a road or in a parking lot or McDonald's you pull into just to get off the road because you don't want to be talking or texting while you drive.
That's illegal.
And the text messages we've talked about before, it's the same thing. You get these 26-page text messages with...
Which, by the way, are unethical.
Yeah, and legally specific questions. And every case is very factually specific. So if you don't have your file and your documentation ready, there are certain things just by experience and having done them in your area of practice that you may be able to have answers for off the cuff.
Well, yeah, but also that specific case has become now highly speculative if you're not prepared.
Yes, because...
And everything you say they're going to hold you to.
Exactly.
And also create what you didn't say just to fill in the blanks because they didn't understand
you didn't tell me about this, and it's on the phone.
Yeah.
There are no notes.
Yeah.
There's no recordings.
Yeah.
There's no
proof.
Anything other than perspective.
Right.
And clients and some attorneys, unfortunately, tend to remember things from their own perspective because they have their own agenda in their mind as to what they want to see happen or an outcome in their case.
Right.
And you're trying to field questions about specific facts or legal issues in a case, and you simply can't do it. So you're doing your best to try and, I won't even say like assuage the client, but you're trying to communicate with them and let them know, what's going on.
You're trying to be as vaguely specific as you possibly could based on no empirical evidence.
It's true because you don't have anything in front of you and you don't have a document. And they'll be like, well, on page 3
they want to squeeze you for an answer.
Right.
Yeah.
On page 3 of the police report in the second line, it says, this or that, and that didn't happen. And it's like, I
can't tell you.
I can't even see it. I'm in my car.
But they want that answer.
Right.
Yeah.
Or you may even be coming out of the restroom at the courthouse
if
you can get into the courthouse.
Right.
So, it creates this basically chasm of
ambiguity,
miscommunication or lack of communication.
Oh, for sure.
And like I said,
or misinterpretation.
Because you're talking.
You would have been better off just not even answering the phone.
Right. And you hate to say that, but sometimes even in legal practice, let's face it, every attorney out there who's listening knows they do it and they have to do it. It's a necessity. You could be coming in from court before you even have your briefcase or your laptop set up or something. There's a client on the phone, and it's like you got to take a message. I'll call them back because I'm not prepared.
Yeah.
For them, and it's kind of going back to the old quotes from.
Well, unfortunately, being an attorney isn't always proactive. A lot of times it's reactive.
Yes.
And where it ties into the Consult app is we're giving you a tool to be reactive, but also to be proactive.
Yes,
right? Because
it's exactly what it does.
You are storing, if you're operating through the phone on the app and not, because it is a cross-platform scenario, if you're not sitting at your desk and you're not prepared, but you can pull over, you can access conversation, you can look at documents, right? You can
look at past
notes. And the history, just like a quick little, okay, well, we talked, you may, if you've got 40, 50 cases going on at one point in time, you may not even remember a client's name, or you remember their name, but you may not, because I got to think.
Oh, sure.
And this is a valid question. At some point in time, after 30 years of being a criminal practitioner, don't the cases all kind of blend in some, not like they're all the same, and obviously there's different factors in every case. But
correct.
You could certainly get a fact from one case mixed up with the fact of another case because they're similar.
Absolutely.
To where if you didn't access those notes or past conversation, you might flip-flop, is this Chris Jones or is this Chris Johnson?
Right.
And like...
Or even scenarios, let's say, for example, in my opinion, one of the areas of law, we'll just take criminal because that's what I have predominant experience in, or most experience in, search and seizure issues. Search and seizure on its own can be like a week-long, conference
right.
on legal issues regarding illegal or lawful searches and seizures.
Well, I can tell you the attorneys have one interpretation and police have another, and then the general public has an entirely different perspective.
Exactly.
So you have three different perspectives on one, set of rules,
right,
or guidelines.
And then we talked about this the other day. When you watch these so-called news magazines, they've all become polarized.
Sure.
They're one side or the other.
Well, they try to accomplish two things. A, make their political statement, and B, bash their political opponent.
Exactly.
While trying to get out some sort of manufactured story.
And the unfortunate part is it used to be just the news magazines or tabloid journalism, as they called it, but it's now fairly pervasive in standard news.
Oh, sure.
Where you can watch the same story on 6 different channels
and get
throughout
six
the court,
different stories,
6 different versions or stories, and you walk away scratching your head, going, "Where's Walter Cronkite? Where's some solid or Ted Koppel? Where's some solid facts where when they give you statistics, we know those are the statistics, or at least to a reasonable certainty."
Sure.
Nowadays, if your head's spinning by the time you're flipping through the channels, go, what? I mean, I got the gist.
That's why I
of
watch
the
the Hallmark Channel. There's none of that involved in any of that. It's just senseless love stories that are absolutely unrealistic. But it's okay. It's my little fantasy world. And they're addicting. Yes. My daughter laughs at me.
Yeah. Well, look at a multi-billion-dollar market, right? The romance novels.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
It is a multi-billion-dollar business.
Sure.
So.
Yeah, it's crazy right now, and like speaking to the being prepared and having those conversations and being forced or just caught, not forced, being caught in those scenarios with your clients. I mean, it's your job, right? What are we doing? We're giving you a tool to be prepared, kind of like the Swiss Army knife for attorneys.
Yes. That's a great analogy.
You're welcome. Write that down.
I will.
Not bad though, right? That was on the fly.
Where it counts.
You got a pen in your tactical pants.
I do.
Yeah.
I love tactical pants.
Yeah.
Functional.
There you go.
Durable.
Yeah.
Practical.
Kind of like the Swiss Army knife of fashion.
Exactly. The Swiss Army knife of pants.
Of fashion. Yeah.
I'm going to create a new style,
So let's segment into
shirt, tie, tactical pants. And
what's
hikers.
happening in Allegheny County, Pennsylvania.
Ouch.
Where we talked a little bit about this before the show. A assistant district attorney filed a grievance or a complaint with OSHA about the conditions in the courthouse. He was concerned.
Yes.
And this guy's in his mid-60s, and
he's dying.
Well, I think that might be a little premature. I don't want to be like other news outlets and say that. When based on the story that I had read, when I had read it, and we kind of jotted some notes down from it. It was last Thursday. Well, he had filed the complaint prior to that. He came down with COVID. He actually was put on a ventilator last week and was in ICU. So they say that he's getting stronger. I haven't seen any updates in terms of the periodicals, but he had filed a grievance about with OSHA in regards to the inconsistencies in protocols at the courthouse. Another counselor was diagnosed with COVID at said same courthouse. And some of the concerns that they had where, again, we're talking about safety protocols, and we know you got to keep the lights on, right? There's things that you got to do.
Correct.
But there was like no temperature testing.
The scan
Yep,
on your forehead.
Yep. There was no better notifications or tracing of people at the courthouse. There was not a secure system in place for that. And then there was not a centralized response within the courthouse in terms of the protocols. For instance, there was a mandatory mask order, and one of the judges did not require masks in her courtroom, which is a blatant disrespect to the order.
Yes.
So that's what do you think about that?
It's an interesting issue because,
and this is one scenario.
In this particular scenario, it brings up or begs the question as to who's accountable, because the way the system works in the courthouses, at least in Florida and in my experience practicing here, all jurisdictions do things different, even within the same.
Well, look at what we're seeing in the county. Just different counties. We're right next door to a county that's way more strict than what our county is. Right.
Like I worked in Pinellas and Pasco County, which is Clearwater, St. Pete, Tarpon,
West
Palm
Coast.
Harbor, in Pinellas, and then Newport Richey, and then the east side. It's actually split. It's a large county. It's split into
east and west.
East and west, but practicing in each side of the county is like being in two different counties, if not two different states.
Or worlds.
Yes. So I think on this particular issue, really one of the focal points is going to be, two issues that pop into my mind. Who's accountable? In other words, is it up to the sheriff's office or whoever provides the bailiffs to control the people, flowing in and out of the courthouse, and whether or not they have masks on? Are they accountable? Or is it the judge who didn't, who allowed people in without masks? Is it court administration for not coming up with sufficient protocols?
Yeah.
Or is it the chief judge who
Or is it the governor
approves,
right, or the mayor
and gives the administrative orders?
Right.
The governor, the mayor. There's many people that could be holding the ball in that situation.
Yeah, it's it gets and that's where you realize how braided this scenario is, right?
And how complex, because we know there's going to be a landslide of litigation on various levels and various venues and areas after COVID.
We discussed this the other day with this being a pandemic, right? And clearly there's not any protocol for a pandemic, which if you're, we have hurricane protocols here in Florida,
yes.
right? And we have like EOCs, right? For the hurricanes, emergency operations centers, right?
Right.
You're familiar with that. And outside of maybe the Cold War, right?
Right.
We haven't had anything like this.
No.
So obviously this has really, really brought a lot of weaknesses to the surface.
That's what I was,
or inefficiencies, right?
Well, and that's what I was, thinking before. Just back to the Pennsylvania. The second issue is, how does one establish that they contracted COVID from the courthouse?
Well, as
opposed to going to
why are you saying just because somebody else had it here? How are you saying that? Yeah,
right. And so far as I know, there's no testing to find out where you can get it from, because you can get it from people who are asymptomatic.
That was going to be my next comment is, well, how do you know you didn't breathe on somebody that was asymptomatic, in your house? That's one of the things. I think I have a feeling that everybody's going to go, look, we're not awarding anything, because how do you prove it?
Sure.
Outside of, literally breathing or, getting in close contact with somebody, right? And
correct.
You being, diagnosed and them catching you doing it and knowing you were doing it.
Well, it's funny because you asked how my weekend was. I went and I actually saw my daughter.
And we won't name names of where you went, just so that we don't blame anybody.
Correct. But I saw a dance recital, 4 hours. Great show. All the kids got to do their thing, which is great because they practice so hard. But I was, when I first walked into the auditorium, stage is up front, of course, you come in through the rear, and I'm walking to find my seat, which thankfully was up front, so there was nobody around me other than my family. But I found it curious that with the 6 foot rule, so to speak, rule-ish, what they did was they staggered the rows 6 feet back from another.
Yeah.
But the seats themselves were elbow to elbow. So you've got about 800 people in the auditorium, and they're 6 feet
from front
to the rear of each other,
right?
front
But
to back.
they're next to one another,
practically on each other's laps in the seats.
Because we know how small those seats are.
Oh, they're
not 24 inches. They're less than 24 inches.
Yeah, those are the stackable chairs.
Yeah.
So, great show, but I because of the work we've been doing and the show we were preparing for and the COVID and Consult, it just kind of was scratching my head going.
Yeah, I was about to say that's a real head scratcher, right?
It's okay. We've got 6 feet to the rear of each other, but you're sitting on top of each other, and not everybody's the member of the same family. Like,
sure, no, I understand.
Next to another family.
Listen, was everybody wearing masks?
They were actually.
Okay.
Yes.
All right. So at least that was.
Yes.
Did the kids dance with masks on?
No, they did not.
Mm-hmm. Interesting.
So
all those little.
And I've worked backstage for.
Yeah. Oh no. Yeah. You're
ages.
You're a stage dad. Yeah. Listen,
dancers.
I get it.
They're all grouped together because they got to cluster together inside the wings.
Yeah. No. Right.
The curtains before they come out on stage.
Yeah.
And
Right.
So it's and it's interesting because the other issue is just, I don't know if you'd even use the word political, but just in general how people's attitudes toward COVID. People who are not sick and there's a lot of people out there who think this is completely insane,
fabricated,
absurd.
Yeah,
it's like it's all just fear mongering.
Yeah, well, there's a lot of that, but it seems to be again, and it's clearly politicized, right? It's been politicized. You either feel it's like the bubonic plague, or it doesn't exist, and unfortunately,
so what? It's
really,
a cold.
Yeah.
Big deal. Like, well, people are dying from it.
Yeah.
So, it's so hard to make a solid call on it, or even in an election year, the politicians have got to be dying because no matter what.
Well, they're either laughing or crying.
Yeah. And no matter what move they make or what decision they move they take or decision they make, or
every breath
you've got every breath you take.
Yeah. We'll be watching you.
Yes.
Right.
It's like to some people it's the wrong move, and to many others it's a great move.
I read
quote reopen the country. Now people are saying shut it back down. We're spiking.
Yeah.
But what are those numbers based on? Is it just the hospitalizations or lack thereof? Is it the number of tests that have increased? Is it it can be anything, and everybody's speculating, and since it's a political year, highly charged.
I read
the finger pointing.
I read an
in
article,
an already polarized nation is insane.
I read an article the other day that said Trump has weaponized COVID, and I'm like, just listen to that,
Yes.
and I'm not defending him, but it's just a shame. It's a shame that it takes away. It's a shame that actually, but then you realize the scientists they're invested. Those guys. Fauci's got patents. And do you keep the narrative going, and how long do you keep the narrative, and what group are you playing for, and who's supporting your patents, and how do those patents work? And it gets a little it's a little much. And
I remember on our last show, I think it was last week because we haven't had one this week yet.
Correct.
And one of the things that had come up talking about Dr. Fauci was how the media, or today's media in the United States and Europe too, especially tabloid journalism, they love to build people up, and when they hit the pinnacle, the story switched to tearing them down.
Oh yeah.
You look at Dr. Fauci. At the beginning of this, he was the guy that took the kind of commander-in-chief of COVID role in the United States. And he was the doctor with the specialization. And now, 4 months later, at that point, everybody was listening intently.
Yeah.
The respect levels were through the roof.
Yeah.
You wanted to hear what he had to say. Nowadays, presently, 4 months later, you've got half of the people once again dying to hear what he has to say, and the other one's ripping him apart.
Yeah.
So it's like being in
look at the police.
positions.
The police were on the front lines protecting us, and they were out there, and they were first responders, and they're our heroes, right? And then three idiots, do commit a terrible act, right? And it's pretty much sent this country into a worse tailspin than what we were in already, right?
Yeah, exactly.
And so, and I think, and here's another part too, right? Let's look at the mental health, and we'll probably have a whole show about this, coming up. But let's talk about the mental health. It's
becoming more and more prevalent, those questions,
right?
And discussions.
And talk about let's say that the COVID is like that pebble that we throw into the pond, right? And it's a calm pond. Certainly, one of the rings of that pebble, right, are the mental health issues. And I think we saw the people protesting, right? I mean, obviously it was a horrible act, but I also think it was exacerbated by them being inside for so long, right? Like,
well,
this
it's
is an
interesting
outlet.
Because over the years, as you know, I've always been a huge fan of our military and kind of a fascination with the military. But the military does some extraordinary testing and and surveying, and for example, I always talk about the special ops guys, because they're
special.
They're special, and they're highly skilled. They're highly trained. I'm from the Tampa Bay area. MacDill Air Force Base is there. It's the home of CENTCOM. It's the home of SOCOM, Special Operations Command, U.S. Army Special Operations Command.
And they drink lots of SoCo.
Oh, yeah. I mean, everybody who's there is a SEAL or a Green Beret or a Delta Force or DevGru, and the Air Force, Special Forces and Special Operations, Special Tactics, the controllers. I mean, these guys are literally like walking air traffic controllers. They're FAA certified. They could drop a bomb, standing in the desert. They could pick a spot, call in the coordinates, and call in an airstrike. They're amazing. And in that vein, they're I'm trying to remember where I was going with this.
I have no idea.
It was
you were a fan of the military, and we were talking about the police,
right? And with the military, they've done over the years considerable testing and research on isolation, and I think that was the point. From POWs to these units and how many deployments they go on, because they're constantly isolated, and it's really, really an interesting area. And now, as you said, we're 4 solid months in, realistically 5 to 6. Look at what's going on with mental health.
There's no light at the end of the tunnel. There is no light
right
at the end of the tunnel.
Then there's also issues pertaining to people who are taking psychotropic medications, who to control mental illness, or mental health issues.
Highest unemployment that we've seen since 2008?
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
If not higher than 2008,
I don't know
more people in the country right now.
But
more people in the country are on unemployment and food stamps than
absolutely.
they've ever been. The lack of government support, especially in our state, in terms of how they've handled the unemployment situation, which
was abysmal.
How they're handling breweries in this state right now, for our brewer friends that are out there, where you can go to a bar that serves French fries and a beer, but you can't go to a brewery and just drink a beer, and with the licensing, just like asinine, just stupid little.
What do we have? The ordinances or with the bar/restaurant. They for what, 2 or 3 weeks they had the bar stools pulled away. You weren't allowed to go up and have a drink at the bar, and then 6 feet away, you've got a table of 20 people passing a couple pitchers around,
right,
and you're scratching your head again.
Yeah,
going.
Well, remember Publix? You know, in their defense, they have to do something, otherwise they'll be accused of not doing anything.
Exactly.
But when they first implemented some sort of social distancing guidelines in the store, you had to go down the aisles in the same direction, right?
Correct.
One way, one aisle, the next aisle, the other way.
Yeah.
And then, but people in the aisle would get up on you, walking in the same direction. So apparently, you weren't supposed to. You could still breathe. I just, you're like,
right.
How the hell does this make sense? Like, I get you got to do something, but this really isn't doing anything. Just to let you know,
right? And everywhere you go, they have the little stickers on the floors now, 6 feet apart.
Yeah, you see people pay attention to that now, right?
Yeah, right. And then they're like, oh, you got 2 people standing on stickers or 6 people standing on stickers, and a guy barging through them, bumping into them. Oh, excuse me, I got to get through. I got to get to the aisle. And okay, once again,
I don't know. And
head scratcher.
It all comes down to risk management.
Yes.
Right. And what does that turn down to? Lawsuits. Right. And
there's going to be many.
There, everybody. The personal injury attorneys, right, are salivating. It's going to be. It's going to be interesting to see what happens. And we're in a really weird spot right now. So we're going to be here and we're going to be reporting on this and talking about it, trying not to be serious about it, but, it is serious. It's not a joke, that's for sure.
No,
so I
the whole community's
just trying to be a little bit lighter, take a little bit lighter stance, try not to be so politicized, and just try to have an educational conversation without really being biased, if you will.
Right.
I got to be honest with you. I don't know how I feel. That's the crazy part. I walk around and it feels like it's bizarre world.
It is. I look at my kids. They're in college level now. My daughter, my youngest, is graduating from high school.
Yeah.
And on Friday she has her quote walk, her graduation walk. Ish. And I believe it's going to be outdoors on the football field, so everybody's.
Yeah, my niece graduated up in North Carolina. They had some half-assed ceremony. One of my best friends, they had a half-assed ceremony. To the school's credits, they're doing what they can, and
they are.
God bless them. My heart goes out to them. My heart goes out to all the seniors this year. I'm so thankful. My daughter graduated from college last year. In April, and I was fortunate enough to go up to Pittsburgh and see the graduation. Had it been this year, it would have been canceled, and I would have been devastated. So I'm very thankful for that. I'm very thankful.
I am too.
But yeah, it's been like bizarre world, man. It's been I'm a people watcher by nature, so for me, this has been like a whole different level of people watching. But it's been a cruel.
Well, it's an unprecedented people watching experience.
It's one of those things where you're in, and we've talked about this before. Like, have you ever seen a narrative outside of war and AIDS? Right? Have you ever seen a narrative take on this sort of hyperbolic?
No, and there's
globally.
Look at everything that's happening, and we were talking about the diverse effects of COVID. Everything from, and I'll use an example because, as you know, over and over again, I'm proud. My daughter made the Tampa Bay Buccaneer cheer squad.
The video squad.
And I saw her last week, and I was talking to her, and I asked her how it was going, not realizing, because she was talking about the practices, that they're actually practicing from home. So I said, let me just
interrupt you for a second. When you say this, right? You know the Christmas video where you put your head on the elf and it's dancing?
Exactly.
I'm just thinking, put your head on the cheerleader, right? And they're just doing their little dancing thing.
And it was literally like a 2x2 foot square with her computer sitting up there, and they got 32 girls or ladies dancing on their computers and watching them trying to. Choreograph.
Right.
I know it in comparison to what's happening with other people. Then you look on the news and you see well, my other daughter with the graduation situation. These are just various ways in people's lives that it's affecting them. And then you have, rioting, if you want to call it that, although some people don't like to call it that, for bare necessities, bread and things like that.
Oh yeah.
Storming, buildings, shattering
for Nikes.
windows. For right.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, it's like, okay, nobody's gonna really give too much of an argument that you've got kids at home that need to eat.
Yeah.
The job market's almost non-existent, particularly look at the part-time workers. I mean, look at high school kids.
Yeah.
Right. When we were growing up, how old were you when you started working? My dad was always
12.
like, yeah. I was fortunate. I worked at my father. He owned a service station, and I worked there. But I also
running numbers.
I also worked my whole life. I was a working student. You got your student loans.
It's just
and stuff.
different. It's different right now.
There's no jobs.
Yeah, right.
They're all sitting at home, and they're confined. And even though it's quote unquote opened up a bit, Listen, do they go?
My daughter has a college degree, and she's waiting to start a job with the Home Shopping Network, answering telephone calls.
And I was going to say, they can't get jobs.
She has 3 degrees.
People who are parents with trying to feed children
Yeah.
are vying for the same jobs because
Sure.
of the market crash.
Sure.
So in all of these different areas, from what people may think are kind of inane situations, but to the people involved, they're not. To drastic situations
Sure.
like we have no food, and you were talking about the police being on the front line. If you've seen the videos of them trying to control what's going on out there, they're overrun.
Well, I'll say this to take a spin and put it to positive. I've seen a lot of really great stories recently.
Oh yes, with people helping
with
people.
Police, I think it was New Jersey or New York. Somebody resuscitated a baby that was born in the subway, saved her. There was a couple other stories of police officers doing amazing things, but that's just their job. There's been some really cool things. One of my acquaintances on Facebook just recently got her job back. She's working. Posts today, hey, if any of my friends are hungry, I'll order you food via an app. Don't go to bed hungry. I mean that. Let me know. If I can help, I want to pay it forward because I'm just so fortunate to have a job and I can help you.
Wow.
That's powerful.
That is powerful.
And if everybody would do that, this would be a lot better place, I think that's one of the cool things about America, right? You put us against a wall, something happens, and we're going to come out and we're going to work together. And let's hope, and we'll end on this, let's hope that we hear more good stories or go out there and let us inspire you to go create some more good stories and focus on the light and not the dark.
Yes.
Because it's real easy to go to that other side. And we'll follow up. I think next week, man, maybe we look at what's happening with over 50 straight nights of rioting in Portland.
Yes.
And
another horrible situation.
Talk about some of the legalities and what's happening there from local government versus a national government.
Right.
We'll look at that angle maybe next week. Something to think about because I've started to read a little bit about that.
And then there was an issue. I don't want to get the wrong city. With the police failing to act.
Yeah.
Was it in Tennessee?
I'm not sure.
Cleveland,
I'm not sure.
Perhaps. I'm not sure
we'll
exactly
look
where
into
it was,
that.
but there was a story where they were Charlotte. I think it was Charlotte, South Carolina, where they were complaining that there was rioting and looting going on, and the cops basically went to intervene, started getting hit by a barrage of bottles and glass, and they had the riot shields and stuff, and they were basically saying, I'm not stepping in there.
Good luck. Dude, I make $18 an hour. It's not happening. Yeah,
it's it's like I said. It seems like everybody's in kind of the same position, which is trying to make limbo, and it seems like whatever direction you're trying to turn, there's a downside.
Sure.
So it's a rough time.
Yeah, for sure.
and
across all verticals.
all.
Law, to bring it back into play, is considered, outside of being a doctor, probably one of the most prestigious professions, right? Oh, he's an attorney. She's an attorney.
Correct.
They're attorneys. I think we're finding out that they're just human beings right now.
Exactly.
Because they're all suffering. A lot of the large firms are laying off people.
Firms are breaking up. People are going into different professions.
And we'll circle back again to the Consult app. If you're just out, you're getting started into law, or you're leaving your practice, minimal cost, maximum effect.
Oh, yeah.
And we've got the answer here. Consult mobile app.
Well,
Lots
again,
of stuff.
According to the American Bar Association, the two biggest concerns, communication issues and the ability to share documents, evidence, etc.,
Information.
speak to witnesses, information.
In an encrypted environment.
And Consult addresses both of them directly
Yeah.
and effectively. It's face-to-face, high-definition video. You contact your client, a witness, whomever you need to speak to. You can do it from wherever you're standing. My brother coaches college football, and
Loves the idea. He loves that.
He looked at it and he was like,
Yeah. I got to make sure.
This could literally.
I got to make sure all my players have this when they go out on the town.
Right. Can you make one for us?
Yeah.
I don't have to fly across the country to watch a kid run a 40-yard dash.
Right.
You could have all the information in there. There's just so many applications for it. We created it for the legal profession, but it's got such potential broad sweeping.
We're just getting started, baby.
And our enterprise.
Oh.
There are entire law firms who want their own app.
Yeah.
Can you make us one? Yes, we can.
Yeah. Well,
how long would it take?
Let's see that
days?
not a cash.
It's Well,
show us you're not.
Well, and again, it's because their businesses are dwindling. They're dying. It's
what have we said all along, right?
It's like watching a plant.
The legal industry is changing. In the last 10 to 15 years, the biggest growth has been in the technology sector. What's going to happen, right? It only benefits the attorneys. What we have and what makes us separate is that we have something that actually benefits the attorney and the clients, right?
Yes.
We're bridging a gap for them. We're making them look good. All they have to do is use the app the way we instruct them to use it, which is why we're writing the scripts, so that they know how to maximize this tool, and it will pay dividend for them. There's a changing of the guard, and we'll get into this in some future shows, and all of our future shows. But man, it's going to be, I'm excited, and we've been an hour. We were supposed to be 20, 30 minutes tonight, Chris, and we've,
it's 8 o'clock.
It's 8 o'clock. So let's get out
Eastern
of here, man.
Standard.
Anything else?
Not for tonight. I think we're good. But we'll be, on our future shows talking about, the various features.
Oh yeah.
Aside from the video and the communication, there's alternative communication tools, the push notifications we just wrote about, where you can mass notice everybody on your contact list, firm members, firm attorneys, clients.
Yep. With analytics.
With analytics that kicks back to the attorney, so you see how many notices were sent, how many were opened, and what the click rate percentage is.
Yep.
The
astounding.
The instant chat messaging, where you can.
We're not going to get back into the show, Chris. We're leaving.
Yes, but we'll be talking about many features and.
Stay tuned.
The various uses for each feature.
Oh, absolutely.
Because they keep changing every day.
Listen, we're going to find new applications for them, right?
Sure.
We're definitely we're discovering that every day. We find ourselves in scenarios. With that being said, guys, join us next week on What Really Matters with attorney Chris Fry. Have a great week, Chris.
Have a good evening.